Welcome to the Ottawa Report. I'm your host, Sandra Dewick. With me, as always, is MP Jamie Schmale from Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes Brock. But we have a special guest today, and we are welcoming Andrew Scheer, federal leader of the Conservative Party and leader of the opposition. So welcome to Peterborough.
Thank you so much. It's been great to visit, and really appreciate the opportunity to come and sit down with you.
No problem. So you've been having a number of discussions throughout the day today. We've touched upon agriculture, small business. Let's start with agriculture. What are you hearing from this community?
Well, I started off the day at the Peterborough Ag Exhibition, which I understand is in its 173rd year, so that's a fantastic, older than Canada. So obviously the agricultural roots in this committee are important, and a huge backbone of the economy, so many value-added jobs, so many secondary industries that are linked to agriculture. Today, as you may imagine, a lot of the conversation was around the supply management sector and how that is faring with all that's going on with the uncertainty around NAFTA. So my message to the dairy farmers I met today was that the Conservative Party will continue to be that strong voice for that sector. The previous Conservative government was able to sign new trade deals while still preserving our support system for dairy producers. And what really frustrates me is when I hear the U.S. administration attack our programs and our system here, and they don't like to talk about their own systems. And the U.S. has a vast system of subsidies and supports and everything from floor prices to the U.S. Farm Bill. And so I think it's important that every Canadian representative, MPs from our party certainly are, to point that out and defend that industry. So that was a big part of the discussion today that led into the roundtable with small business.
Great, and small businesses, we hear often a lot of talk around regulation and the impact that consistently has, especially when it starts being compounded consistently on top. How do you respond to that? What are some of the challenges you see, the opportunities there?
Yeah, major opportunities. I believe with a view towards reducing red tape and regulations, we can bring about a tremendous amount of economic growth without government spending and without government involvement. That's key. And what I heard today, meeting with business owners here in the Peterborough area, is that is a huge impediment to growth. And I heard a number of examples of companies that aren't allowed to do something because it just doesn't fit into the piece of paper that somebody at a government department designed. So that's going to be a big part of what Conservatives talk about, is reducing government, making government more efficient, and taking away the impediments to growth. Also heard a lot about the Liberal government's tax hike proposals that have been going on for over a year. We all remember when they came out with the very divisive language, accusing business owners of being tax cheats and things like that. So that still resonated here today. And why I'm so passionate about this is because we know in the Conservative Party that it's people that benefit from a thriving small business sector in our economy. I got my first job thanks to a small business owner. I was able to pay my way through university. When I moved to Saskatchewan, I was able to get a job at an insurance company thanks to a husband and wife that had sold the family farm and paid for they bought an insurance brokerage, they paid for my training, and that allowed me to, have a job and get married and all that type of thing. And that's the experience of so many Canadians. So when Liberals attack that, they really are hurting people by destroying opportunities and destroying economic growth. So again, the Conservative Party will have a robust strategy to reduce red tape, lower taxes on businesses so that they can do what they do best, create jobs for Canadians.
Great. Now, Jamie and I talk a lot about on the show about the Via Rail project for this area and what it will mean for jobs, the economy, and so many of our local industries. How do you feel about this project? Do you see the benefits environmentally as well as economic?
Well, I'll maybe throw it over to Jamie to go into the specifics of it. Jamie has talked to me about it in the past, told me how important it is to the area. I think that anytime you can give people more options when it comes to mass transit, when it comes to connecting urban centers, that creates benefits several times removed. It really is a way to increase economic opportunity and to improve the quality of life. Less time spent on the road, less time in traffic. So I have fond memories of taking the train growing up. I depended on mass transit and public transit my whole time growing up. I think it's got to be part of any government's approach to urban issues, and so I'll maybe let Jamie speak to the specifics of it, but we've had some initial conversations, and I think that there is a role for government to play, the federal government to support the types of projects like that. That's where infrastructure dollars should be being spent. We've seen the Liberals take infrastructure dollars and spend them on all kinds of things that have nothing to do with actual infrastructure projects. They've created whole new categories of what they call social infrastructure, and that's diverted funds that could go into roads, sewers, train service, into other areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we talked about, Sandra, $8 million in the last federal budget for VIA, but only to study it for 3 more years. And as we all know, studies have been going on for years and years and years. We have numerous of them. I think everyone agrees, whether the Chamber of Commerce, business, you name it, they all agree that it's time to go. We have the tracks are there. The tracks that are in existence are not acceptable for freight. You can only move at about 20 to 30 kilometers an hour. So, the business case is there. The ridership, we know people are moving to this area. We know the ridership numbers will be there, especially going into Toronto area. So it's time to get some shovels in the ground. I think we've proven that. So it's time for the government to act, and we'll be watching to see how they handle this once this next study comes out.
I guess one more. I think we have time for one more question. I guess what we heard in the small business roundtable was perhaps a different approach, perhaps identifying an end goal and helping and finding ways and policies to make sure businesses get to that end goal. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you feel about that kind of approach to it.
I think that could turn government red tape on its head by adopting the approach of saying, what do we want? We want clean water. We want companies that manufacture or have various emissions that have to be discharged not to pollute our rivers and lakes. So that is the goal of the regulation. So let's have that encoded. But how they do that should be up to them, and we should give them the flexibility and the ability to innovate. And what we're hearing from many different businesses that say, look, someone decided that this was the only way to achieve a goal, and so they've written that into the regulations. But I've invented a way to do it cheaper or more efficiently, or my company has avoided the issue altogether by doing this, that, or the other thing. So these regulations no longer apply to me. We have to build that flexibility into our regulatory framework, and by having an outcomes-based approach, by saying you're free to innovate, you're free to arrive at different solutions as long as you do X. And X can be, labor standards, it can be workplace safety standards, it can be environmental standards, it can be food safety. That should be the starting point. And within that, we should really be encouraging people to innovate and be flexible. That would also unleash a whole lot of economic growth.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much to both of you for joining us this afternoon. That has been the Ottawa Report. I'm your host, Sandra Dueck.